Welcome to another deep dive. We've got a really interesting one today, and it all starts with, well, a tiny creature, and I'm sure you've heard them before,
Oh,
a
yeah.
cicada. And we end up with some pretty big questions about consciousness, so this should be pretty interesting. We're taking a look at a chapter called Cicada Euryphara, also known as European cicada, and that's in the book Pure Consciousness Taking on the Way Inside. So I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too. And it's amazing how something as small as a sound can spark such a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And the author kind of starts us off by taking us back to when he was a kid. So you imagine you're running around your grandfather's vineyard, the sun is shining, grapes are all over the place, and then you hear it,
Oh, yeah.
that sound, the buzzing of a cicada.
Right.
And years later, he learns that that sound came from a European cicada, or the Cicada Euryphara. But at the time, it was just this really kind of intriguing sound that stuck with him.
That's so interesting how certain sounds can leave like a lasting impression like that, huh? And in this case, I mean, it's not just any sound, it's the sound of a cicada. And, these insects, they have a fascinating life cycle. They spend years underground, before they emerge as adults.
Oh, yeah. I was reading about that. They have these things called tymbals. And it's like it's almost like a drum head on their abdomen. And they vibrate these things super fast to create that buzzing.
Right, exactly. And the structure of those tymbals and the resonating chambers in their bodies actually, determines that specific frequency and complexity of the sound that you hear.
Wow.
It's actually really kind of sophisticated for such a small creature.
It really is. It's like their own little instrument that they have.
Yeah.
Fast forward to the author's teenage years, he's grappling with, big questions about life and the universe and everything, typical teenage angst.
Oh, yeah, for sure. A time of great inner turmoil, for sure.
Sure.
I mean, it's a period where a lot of us start to, question our place in the world and search for meaning and all that.
Yeah. And this is where the cicada comes back into the picture.
Oh, okay.
The author, he starts to see this parallel between the constant buzzing of his thoughts and the cicada song. It's almost like his mind is like a noisy cicada, constantly chattering and, distracting him from finding any kind of peace.
That's a powerful analogy.
Yeah.
It really highlights how our thoughts can sometimes feel like this overwhelming noise that prevents us from experiencing any kind of inner stillness.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of meditative practices, they focus on quieting the mind, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So in a way, he was experiencing a similar kind of struggle, and he even talks about how he felt trapped by these thoughts,
Yeah.
like he was lost in this maze of his own making.
Yeah, that feeling of being trapped is something that I think a lot of people can relate to, especially when we're caught in those negative thought patterns that we all get into.
For sure. But then something incredible happens. The author describes it as a moment of spontaneous enlightenment.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. So tell me, what does he mean by spontaneous enlightenment? What was his experience like?
It wasn't a gradual process. It seemed like it was a sudden shift in perspective.
Mm.
He realized that he didn't have to be consumed by his thoughts. He can observe them from a distance without judgment.
Right. That's a fundamental principle in mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
Cultivating that ability to just observe our thoughts and feelings without getting carried away by them.
Right.
It's like becoming an objective observer of your own internal world.
And it's amazing how this realization just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He compares it to suddenly being able to see the exit to the maze that he was trapped in. He was still in the maze, but now he had a way out.
Oh, that's a beautiful analogy. I love that.
Yeah, and this realization becomes kind of a turning point for him in his journey, and it leads him to seek out ways to cultivate this new awareness.
Okay, so what did he do?
Well, he starts spending time on park benches,
Hmm.
just observing his thoughts and trying to quiet the cicada in his mind.
Oh, well,
Almost like he created his own personal meditation retreat in the middle of the city.
that's a really cool image, finding peace amidst the chaos of city life.
Yeah.
It kind of suggests that we can find moments of stillness and clarity anywhere if we know how to look for them.
For sure. And his experience leads him to ask this whole new line of questioning.
Okay. Like what?
Well, if he can quiet the cicada of his thoughts, what lies beyond that noise?
Now we're getting into the deeper philosophical questions here.
Yeah.
So what did he discover in that space beyond thought?
Well, that's what we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh man, you're gonna leave us hanging like that.
I know. But before we move on, have you ever had an experience like that where you suddenly became aware of your thoughts in this new way?
Yeah.
Or maybe you felt that sense of being trapped in a maze of your own thinking?
Oh, absolutely. I think most people have had that experience at some point. Yeah, and I think the author's journey is a powerful reminder that we all have that potential to find peace and clarity even amidst the noise of our everyday lives.
I completely agree. So stay tuned for part 2. We'll delve deeper into the author's exploration of consciousness beyond thought and what he discovered in that realm.
All right, so you were about to tell us what the author discovered, when he went beyond the noise of his thoughts. What did he find there?
Well, he doesn't claim to have all the answers,
Hmm.
but he describes these moments of really intense focus where his thoughts kind of fade away and he experiences this different kind of awareness. He's fully present in the moment, completely absorbed in whatever he's doing, whether it's listening to music or just observing nature.
That sounds a lot like what psychologists call flow state.
Yeah,
It's that feeling of being completely immersed in an activity where time just seems to disappear and you're performing at your peak.
exactly. And he describes it as incredibly peaceful and fulfilling, like he's tapped into this deeper level of consciousness that's not bound by the constant chatter of his mind.
That's a fascinating idea. It suggests that there's more to our conscious experience than just, our thoughts.
He even uses this beautiful metaphor. He talks about being filled with the white fire from the emptiness.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a bit mystical,
Yeah.
but I think it captures the sense of clarity and peace that he experienced in those moments.
Yeah, it's a very poetic way of putting it, and it really aligns with the descriptions of flow state that emphasize, a sense of effortless action and just heightened awareness.
And, you don't have to be a mystic or a meditator to
Yeah.
experience this. Think about a time when you were completely engrossed in something you love, maybe playing music, painting, or even playing a sport. Did you ever feel like time just flew by and you were totally in the zone?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
I think most of us have had those moments, even if we don't label them as flow state.
right.
It's that feeling of being completely present and engaged in the moment, without any self-consciousness or distraction.
And the author seems to suggest that by quieting the cicada of our thoughts, we can access this state more readily. Like we're creating space for that deeper level of awareness to kind of emerge.
That makes sense when we're constantly bombarded by, all these thoughts. It's hard to experience that sense of stillness and clarity.
And he also talks about how this state of consciousness beyond thought, it's not about suppressing or controlling our thoughts. It's more about recognizing that thoughts are just thoughts. They don't define who we are.
It's about shifting our relationship to our thoughts rather than trying to eliminate them altogether.
Yeah.
That's a very important distinction.
And he even goes so far as to say that this shift in perspective can have a really profound impact on our lives. He believes it can lead to greater happiness, creativity, and even a sense of interconnectedness with something larger than ourselves.
That's a pretty bold claim, but it's not entirely unfounded. Studies have shown that mindfulness practices, which cultivate a similar kind of awareness, can have significant benefits for our mental and emotional well-being.
So it seems like there's a growing body of evidence to support the idea that quieting our minds and cultivating a deeper level of awareness can lead to a more fulfilling life.
It's definitely an intriguing area of exploration, and it all started with the sound of a cicada.
It's amazing how something so seemingly insignificant can spark such a profound journey. But I think that's the beauty of nature. It's full of these little reminders that there's more to life than meets the eye.
I couldn't agree more. It's a call to pay attention, to listen deeply, not just to the sounds around us, but also to the whispers of our own hearts.
Beautifully said. Now, the author doesn't stop there. He goes on to explore some practical techniques for cultivating this inner sensitivity, as he calls it, techniques that anyone can use to quiet the cicada of their mind and experience a deeper level of consciousness.
Oh, okay. This is where it gets really practical. So tell me, what are some of the techniques he suggests?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of paying attention to our bodies.
Mm.
He believes that our bodies are constantly giving us information, but we often ignore those signals because we're so caught up in our thoughts.
Right. That's a key principle in a lot of mindfulness practices as well.
Yeah.
Becoming aware of our physical sensations can really help us ground ourselves in the present moment and become more attuned to our inner experience.
He talks about noticing the sensations of breathing, feeling the ground beneath our feet, and just becoming aware of how our bodies feel in different situations.
It's like tuning into a whole other sense that we often take for granted.
Yeah, and he even suggests that the quality of our physical movements can be influenced by our focus of attention. For example, if we're exercising, we're really tuned into our bodies, feeling each movement, we're more likely to improve our technique and avoid injuries.
That makes sense. When we're fully present in our bodies, we're more likely to move with grace and efficiency.
He also talks about the importance of working with our thoughts directly. He acknowledges that it can be challenging, especially when our minds are racing with worries and anxieties.
So how does he suggest we approach those challenging thoughts?
Well, he introduces this technique called transformation of the thought flow. It's essentially a process of identifying thoughts that are causing us distress and consciously replacing them with more positive and supportive thoughts.
It's like weeding out the negative thoughts and planting seeds of positivity in their place.
Exactly, and he emphasizes the importance of finding the useful root of even our most negative thoughts. He believes that even thoughts that cause us pain often have an underlying positive intention.
For example, if we're feeling anxious about an upcoming presentation, that anxiety might stem from a desire to do well and impress our audience.
Right, and by recognizing that underlying positive intention, we can start to transform the thought into something more helpful. Instead of thinking, I'm going to mess this up,
Hmm.
we might say to ourselves, I'm going to do my best and share my knowledge with confidence.
Right, that's much more empowering and supportive, and it's likely to lead to a more positive outcome.
He also suggests using visualization techniques to help solidify these new thought patterns. Imagining ourselves succeeding, feeling calm and confident can actually help rewire our brains and create new neural pathways.
It's like using the power of our imagination to shape our reality.
Exactly. And he believes that by consistently practicing these techniques, we can gradually quiet the cicada of our minds and create more space for peace, clarity, and even joy.
It's a process of retraining our minds to focus on the positive and to cultivate a more mindful way of being.
And the beauty of it is that anyone can do it. It doesn't require any special equipment or training, just a willingness to pay attention and to experiment with different techniques.
It's an invitation to embark on a journey of self-discovery using our own minds as the laboratory.
And who knows, maybe along the way we'll even discover that white fire from the emptiness that the author describes so eloquently.
Right.
But before we get too carried away, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned so far. What are some of the key takeaways that are resonating with you? It's really interesting how the author brings us back to, that initial cicada sound from his childhood, like that buzzing became a symbol for the noise of his own mind. And by learning to quiet it, he discovered this whole new way of experiencing the world.
Yeah, it's a reminder that, inspiration can come from the most unexpected places. And sometimes it's those small, insignificant moments that end up, shaping our whole journey.
Absolutely. But he doesn't just leave us with, these inspiring ideas. He also addresses the practicalities of it all. He acknowledges that this inner work might sound, daunting or even a bit boring to some people.
Yeah, that's true. Not everyone is, immediately drawn to introspection and self-reflection.
Right.
Some people might find it intimidating or even pointless.
But he encourages us to approach it with an open mind. Like we're learning a new skill. He even compares it to physical exercise. Just like we train our bodies, we can train our minds to become more focused, resilient, and attuned to our inner world.
He uses the phrase inner fitness to describe it. I like that.
Yeah.
It makes it seem more approachable and less esoteric.
Yeah, it takes the mystery out of it. And he stresses that it's not about achieving some kind of perfect state of enlightenment. It's about, making these small, consistent efforts to cultivate inner awareness.
It's about the journey, not the destination.
Right.
And he even suggests, seeking help from trusted friends if we're struggling with certain thoughts or patterns.
Yeah, that's such an important point. We don't have to do this alone sometimes.
Yeah.
Having someone to talk to bounce ideas off of can make a huge difference.
Yeah. He also reminds us that, this inner work isn't just about personal growth. It can also have a positive impact on the world around us. He believes that by becoming more mindful and compassionate individuals, we can actually contribute to a more harmonious and peaceful society.
So it's not just about feeling better ourselves, it's about creating a better world for everyone.
Exactly. And he goes even further, suggesting that, by aligning ourselves with this deeper level of consciousness, we can tap into a source of wisdom and guidance that transcends our individual understanding. He even talks about an invisible, infinite, and all-pervasive consciousness that connects us all.
Wow, that's a pretty profound concept. It's interesting how he weaves together these practical techniques for self-improvement with a more, spiritual understanding of consciousness.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach that recognizes the interconnectedness of our inner and outer worlds.
And he ends the chapter with a really powerful call to action.
Yeah.
He encourages us to make this deep and final decision to trust in this all-pervasive consciousness and allow it to guide our lives. He even calls it being born a second time in this life.
That's quite a statement. It suggests a complete transformation of our worldview and our way of being in the world.
It definitely implies a radical shift in perspective. And while it might not resonate with everyone, I think it speaks to that potential for profound change that exists within each of us.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we have the power to choose how we experience life, to move beyond the limitations of our ego and tap into that deeper source of wisdom and connection.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to ponder what sounds in your life or even silences might hold the key to your own journey of self-discovery. What small steps can you take today to cultivate that inner fitness and connect with that deeper level of awareness within yourself?
And if you're feeling inspired to explore this further, we highly recommend checking out the book Pure Consciousness, Taking on the Way Inside. You might be surprised by what you discover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring and keep listening.